how to write 5 Medicare plans each and every week, even if you're brand new to the Medicare space. So the reason I like putting this kind of content together is because, first of all, there's not a lot of blueprints out there to actually see success in the insurance business. And my intention is to give you kind of a step-by-step process on making this successful. A lot of you here probably are maybe not necessarily doing Medicare yet, or probably, but sometime soon considering to do it, and kind of want to know what goes into it. So a lot of this broadcast will be more specifically about, and on an activity basis, what you need to do, what kind of leads you need to source, as well as the kind of presentation and work ethic you need to have in order to do it. This is valid if you want to sell over the phone or face-to-face in the Medicare space. And then the outcome of this is to give you the blueprint, to give you the process necessary to be able to do this, again, not just during annual election period, but all year long, and to give you some tips and advice on how to do that. So I'm recording this live with my Zoom group at Insurance Sales Success. Guys, if you're interested in checking that out, it's a free training site. You can go to davidduford.com/ISS. Join it. It's free. Tons of free training all the time. Lots of scripts, great community. Highly encourage you to check it out. Of course, you're interested in selling Medicare or any other product like Final Expense. We do that at DeFord Insurance Group. Go to davidduford.com/FAQ to learn more. Okay. So let's jump into this. So there's really a couple of factors here. First of all, Medicare. By show of hands, I'm curious to see who in the chat here is live. How many people here are currently selling Medicare, and how many people are thinking about doing it at some point in the future, maybe several months to a year plus down the line? If you'll comment in the chat box below, just to kind of help me craft my presentation a little bit more particularly for you guys who are here live. Just let me know in the chat while I take a sip of my coffee. And let me know if you, again, are more of the new agent to Medicare or aspiring agent to Medicare. So like I said, thank you, Doug. I'd like to sell it in the near future. New, thinking about it. Okay. Doing Medicare. Excellent. Okay. So generally newer or thinking about it is what I kind of figured out. Just began my insurance business, then thinking to begin. Excellent. Good. So how many here would like to hear some basic product knowledge? I think I'll throw that in kind of after I explain the setup and how to get to writing 5 policies a week. So we'll start with, again, the blueprint of sales and marketing. We'll get through that. There's probably going to be some questions about the product itself. We're going to save the end of our broadcast to actually cover that. Does that make sense, everybody? Everybody sound fair? So that way, at the end of this, you kind of know what you need to do, but I have an idea strategically how the products work and what are the benefits of selling Medicare. Make sense? Okay, cool. So the good news about selling Medicare is that it's a pretty straightforward, simple process. It is not a complicated product. Yes, there's a lot of knowledge to know relative to, especially like Final Expense or Medicare, but the sales process is very simple. It is largely a one-call close, and most of the sub-niches, we'll talk about different styles in which you can sell. But it's really just an activity-based strategy. The bottom line is you have to get in front of enough people in order to leverage what your capabilities are to hit the kind of numbers that you need to achieve. So that's a good thing, because it's not a more, I would say, complex sale or more higher stake sale like an annuity sale where you need multiple calls in many cases to get the deal closed. So let's start with leads. I think leads is the perfect place to start. If you haven't thought about leads yet, you'll ultimately be thinking about leads when it comes to doing any kind of insurance marketing. So what kind of leads do you need in order to write 5 policies or more every single week? Well, number one, for us at DeFord Insurance Group, I can only share with you what works, is we're heavy on the direct mail strategy to generate prospects and get returns. What is direct mail? So direct mail, in case you're new to the business, we don't actually send postcards to our clients. We hire a third-party direct mail vendor. They provide the leads. They know what leads work and are compliant. More of that in a second, unique to Medicare. We send that vendor our money. They do all the mailing, send it out to the prospects in the counties or areas we want to target. And then we get the returns from that. So this is a business reply card postcard. So that means there's some part of it that's detachable. Some of you may have gotten this, like, free information about water filters. Fill this out for more details, right? There's all sorts of products that use this strategy outside of insurance. And the person fills it out. It's usually a very vague, generic type of lead, enough to tell you a little bit about what it is, but not all the details. So the curiosity factor is there. So the people fill it out, send it back, and then you get it back typically in a 4-week period of time is the turnaround on direct mail conservatively. We like direct mail because it's a higher quality type of lead. Somebody who physically is involved in the process of requesting information and is willing to send their personal information through the mail to get details this day and age is somebody who is very interested. You compare that, not that this is a critique, but with Facebook leads, there's much less involvement, generally speaking. You're just, scrolling through your Facebook feed, wasting time, and you see a burial insurance ad or a Medicare ad, and you fill it out 5-10 seconds later, you're done. So there's a lot less easy come, easy go with that, or more easy come, easy go. And so therefore the quality tends to be higher with direct mail, because at any point of the person filling it out, they can toss it out, right? And I assure you, they've gotten Medicare mailers in the mail and have tossed them out a number of times throughout their entire lives. But something has happened, most likely with the quality of the Medicare they have, the lack of benefits that they're getting, or the perception there should be something better, to motivate them enough to fill that card back and then see what happens, okay? So that is a powerful lead. It also tends to be the more expensive option, okay? So with direct mail, probably now with a compliant lead piece in the Medicare Advantage space, again, we'll talk product differences. If you got questions on Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, throw them in the chat. I promise I'll get to them later. The prominent lead piece that really works very well that we recommend typically averages about a $30 average price point. It depends on the market. Sometimes it's way more in some markets, sometimes a little bit less. $30 to $35 is pretty safe, okay, is what you can expect on average. So when you go to the mail house, you drop 1,000 mailers. So they don't send you the leads. They say, hey, we're going to drop at 1,000 a clip mail these postcards. And then if you get back 15 of those, the response rate's 1.5%. And your average price is going to be the price you paid per 1,000 divided by the number of leads you got. And it's going to be, if it's like 550 divided by 15, it's somewhere in the 30s. You guys can do the math for me. That's about what I would expect as a price point. Again, to me, direct mail, I'm old school to a certain extent. So I very heavily rely and believe in direct mail for all sorts of different insurance products. It just works really well as long as you can get it affordably priced like we can. And the results are outstanding. So that is the preferred source we use. We have other agents, though, that do their own Facebook lead marketing. I have one gentleman, Anthony Boba, who we're going to have his video come out that we did at our Lead Agent Summit in Orlando. By the way, we'll be in Houston in April and then Nashville in May. If you guys want to attend, daviddefour.com/summit for details. Anthony Boba switched from final expense telesales to Medicare because he wanted to build a passive income. That's another big reason why people do Medicare, is a residual lifetime income versus life insurance. It's good the first year, but very little in the forthcoming years. So what Anthony did, he's always done his own Facebook leads with final expense, but then adapted it towards Medicare. I want to say it during annual election period, which is the heavy volume period of time of year from about October to the end of December. It's the best time you should be selling. You should be selling 7 days a week, as far as I'm concerned, 6-7 days a week, 15 hours a day, because everybody can change their plans and it's very easy to switch people out. I think he sold part-time-ish, like 30-35 hours a week. I think he sold somewhere around like 125 policies, and his cost acquisition was like $2,500, which, is crazy. So if you do the math, like he was getting probably still has Medicare leads under $2 a piece on Facebook because his approach works so well. So Medicare does work. Facebook does work for Medicare, but now you got to do the whole process of learning how to market. That's a whole different skill set. So generally speaking, agents new to Medicare, because there's so much to know and it's very overwhelming and we only have so much bandwidth, I generally recommend direct mail because of that. So with that said, I'll kind of proceed on the direct mail front, okay? But understand there's other leads out there. You may need more or less of that kind of lead to get the kind of production we're trying to get to. So let's say we're taking direct mail. The next question is, Dave, how many direct mail lead pieces Do I need to hit 5 applications a week? So for me, in my experience, a good agent, and I use the term good agent loosely. To me, a good agent is not a top, like super producer, but they're not bad. They're good, but they're not great, but they're not bad, right? So I would say a top 20% producer. That is my kind of process that I go through and kind of defining what it means to be good. So a good producer, when they sit down with a presentation for Medicare, is going to close about half of those presentations. Okay. So if I sit down with two people a day over time, not day to day, because some days everybody will buy, some days nobody will buy. Hopefully don't die either, because then we can't sell them. But sometimes you sit down with people and, you don't make the sales. Sometimes you do. But generally speaking, over the long haul, about half of your presentations should convert into a Medicare sale of some sort. Okay. And out of those presentations, about half of your direct mail leads should book. So if you buy, and we can do the math, you got kind of see this coming together. If you're buying 20 leads a week and you're setting your own appointments or selling over the phone, I think this requires maybe a little bit lower conversion rate on the phone because you're not physically there in front of them. But if I take 20 appointments or 20 leads and I call to set appointments, I'm going to expect to book half of those as appointments. So what's half of 20? 10 appointments. And if I'm a good agent, I expect to close half of those preset appointments, which yields me approximately 5 policies. Again, I'm being very, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't guarantee anybody out there what the results are going to be. That would be superfluous, right? It would be not true. Everybody's going to have a variation around that theme. So, for example, I've seen agents in my agency, one gentleman, Matt, who's really a good agent, and he closed 40% of his direct mail leads. So he had bought about how much did he buy? Like 240 of them. And he closed, maybe it was a little less than that. He closed 90 policies, and that was 40% of his total leads inside of a quarter, which is just outstanding. It's a huge close rate. I don't really see many agents do much less than 20% because I think there's some reasons why with Medicare. It's once you get through all the compliance stuff, we'll talk about that more in a minute. There's a lot of, it's a simpler product to sell, and we'll explain why in a minute. But I would expect if you want to play it safe, and this is kind of how I teach my agents when it comes to any kind of insurance sales product, you don't want to assume a best case scenario. If any of you all have been in finance, or if you've ever had to approach a bank and show projections on where your business will be, you got to do what's called a pro forma, right? A pro forma shows you expectations, assuming certain variables like great revenue, okay revenue, and then poor revenue, right? And then how the costs factor into that to influence net income, right? So I go into that thinking, and I think you should too. You don't want to think, oh, I'm the best agent, I'm just going to assume everything's going to be perfect. Don't. Instead, what you should do is assume that you're just, you're okay, right? Because if you assume you're okay, not even good, but just so-so, then what you can do is make up for your lack of capability, perceived lack of capability, for the sake of estimating what you need, by doing more work and buying more leads. This is kind of my secret to success in this business. I never thought I was the man. I'm only like, I'm a good agent. I'm not great, but I'm not bad. But I always assumed that I was less capable than I really was. I never overestimated my capabilities when it came to how much business I was actually going to write. And for me, in my mind, the way that I think that I want to bestow upon you or embody in you is to never overestimate yourself. Make up for the potential that you're not the best by working more, working harder, going the extra mile, and having more leads than the other guy. Okay. That is just a really good piece of advice. not contingent on Medicare, but just really anything in life, is just assume you kind of suck. If that's the case, what are you going to do to make up for it? Well, you're going to try harder. You're going to work longer. You're going to run more appointments than the other person, right? It's really important you think that way, or at least in your action. Hopefully you do think a little bit more about yourself, but you get the point, I hope. Okay. Now, how does this relate to Medicare and getting to 5 policies a week? Very simple. Instead of buying 20 in my example, right? 20 leads, 10 presentations, 5 policies, I would buy 30 leads. Okay. I would try to run 15 appointments a week instead. And I'd hope to at least close a third of them. I know, though, if the numbers pan out and I'm really focused on being a better agent, I'm probably going to write more than that. 6, 7, maybe even 8 or more if I'm actually really, really good. But the point is, notice what I did here. I didn't assume the best. I assumed the worst case scenario. And then I built my business around that reality. And that's more relevant as a new Medicare agent or a new insurance agent of any kind, is to make up for the fact that you don't know a lot and that you're going to have to go through some rough spots in your business before you really get good. And the more at-bats that you have, the more success I believe that you can get out of this. So in this case, what I would recommend if I were full-time in Medicare and I wanted to write 5 policies a week, to me, it's like 5 minimum. I want more than that, but I want to make sure I don't have any less than that. So I'm going to take more leads, 30 leads instead of 20. I'm going to run more appointments, 15 appointments a week instead of 10. And I'm pretty sure that even if my close rate's 40%, I'm still going to end up with 5 or 6 policies on the low side, but probably more, especially as time progresses and I start to become a better agent. Kind of to wrap this thing up, this is not a complicated business, y'all. Like if you're coming to me hoping you're going to get some sort of like, I don't know, epiphany that nobody else is going to tell you, that's some super secret sauce about how, you know, John Dean, one of my best Medicare agents, wrote 100 Medicare plans back in, I believe it was February. I have none. There's no secrets in this business. The people that act as if they are trying to sell you a product. They're trying to sell you on joining their agency. There's some ulterior motive. There's a scheme going on that you are unaware of. This business is not that difficult, but it's not easy either. The business really just comes down to one thing. It's activity. And how do you get activity? You got to have people to talk to. And how we teach it at DeFord Insurance Group is to have some sort of lead system. You got to have a sales and persuasion system and have the tools in your tool bag, the carriers, to then take the business when you can get it so that you can close deals. And you really have to have, and if there is a secret, it is this: you have to have the willingness and the discipline to discipline yourself to the system, not for a week or two, but for months and years and years and years. This is really probably where the people with potential in life really run into most difficulty in Medicare or any kind of insurance sales. It gets boring. I'm here to tell you, like, this business actually gets boring, which may sound surprising to you because you're like newer and this sounds cool. Everything loses its novelty, even something like this. And the best advice I could get for you is like have a hobby or something outside of the business to, you know, relate your like fun with. It's funny how many agents I run into that are really doing just fine if they just stay on the ball and follow the system, that start to meander off the path that could otherwise just do great. I have an agent in my agency, just an absolute slayer of Medicare, but he wants to do ACA. Then he wants to go sell ACA leads. So he's all over the place and never dialing in and focusing on one thing. This goes back to my original point I posted on Facebook the other day in a couple of groups. Focus is critical here. And it's the long-term application of that focus is where you're going to differentiate from your competition. Your competition loses focus. They see a new product after they have a bad week. They switch gears entirely and they start back at square one. Whereas the people who do well, make a lot of money, Medicare and otherwise, they have ups, they have downs, they understand that and have the maturity to recognize that, but keep working through it. And don't think they have to throw the whole system out because you had a bad week or two. Okay, it happens to all of us. So if there is a secret to this business, it's that It's sticking to it. It sounds hell easy, but it is not. You're going to be tempted to switch gears and do something else for novelty's sake, or because you just feel like you've lost traction.